Hello, I'm your host, Jim McClean. Welcome to another episode of More Than Pixels on a Screen, a podcast brought to you by the Banderflix movie review website. This is the third episode in the new series. It's a new name, but as I said before, listeners, it's the same old voices. Well, technically, because my guest this week, Adam Neeson. Hello.
Hi, Jim.
Adam, we've technically only ever had you on the pod once before. I believe.
Yes. No, wait. Twice. Once in the studio and the other time...
Oh, yeah, by Zoom.
Zoom for Malignant.
Malignant, which kind of brings into... It's connected to something we're going to be talking about in a future episode when we'll be talking about Megan, but that's not what we're going to be talking about this week. We are going to be talking about Rob Zombie's Wake Me Up From This Bizarre Fever Dream, his version of The Munsters. It's out on VOD platforms now. I believe in some areas it's on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix in the UK.
In America, over here, Blu Ray and DVD.
Yes, and as I said, it's available VOD. Just want to clarify, listeners, because it's an audio platform. When I said that, Adam shook his head. He shook his head and was like, yes, that works for audio. So, more excitingly, though, I am delighted to say that on this podcast, I'm going to be getting a chance to speak to one of the stars of the film. That is Daniel Roebuck. He is playing the Count, or as we know him from the Munsters TV series, Grandpa, I think played originally by Al Lewis, if I'm speaking off the top of my head.
I'm shaking my head again.
You shaking his head? You're not sure?
I don't know.
All right, okay. He's shaking his head. He doesn't know. We have Daniel Roebuck. He's on the show. He's going to be speaking to him via Zoom. He plays the Count in this, or as we know him from the original series, it's just Grandpa, originally played by Al Lewis. So we have that to look forward to. Adam, before we get talking to Daniel and before we share our thoughts in the film, are you generally a fan of Rob Zombie?
Not really.
This bodes well.
I've seen House of a Thousand Corpses.
Yeah.
3 from Hell.
Yeah.
Devil's Rejects.
Halloween 2.
We don't talk about those.
They exist.
Yeah. They're in CX for £1.
That's £1 you're never getting back. Sorry, Rob.
Also stars our Mr. Munster.
Yes, it does. Daniel Phillips. And
I've also seen...
You can see how well researched we are for this pod.
31. I know the song Dracula.
Yeah, there we go. So that's the amount of research we're bringing to this project. So I guess another way of putting this, as I kind of alluded to in my introduction, so when I first heard about this sounded like a weird fever dream. Like it's like, wake me up. Rob Zombie is doing the Munsters. Were you a fan? I mean, I know it was out in the 60s, but then wasn't it the Munsters today?
Yeah.
They kind of brought it back. And then I remember vaguely, I think there was like an Eddie Izzard starred in like a modern day kind of, I think it was it a pilot or something like that they tried to bring the Munsters into a kind of more modern setting and kind of give it a fresh new kind of look.
It was Mockingbird Lane, what they called it.
That's the one. I can't remember if it was a pilot or whether it was a series.
I think it might have been a series.
Email in, listeners. This is what we're going with in this approach. Any questions we don't know, just email in and let us know. So, yes, it's been around a couple of times. I don't think it had the same kind of cultural impact here. I don't know. I mean, it definitely came. It was out in the 60s. I remember it being on the TV when I was growing up, not in the 60s, but on reruns. But I don't know if it was the original Munsters or whether it was the Munsters today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Do you remember watching it when you were younger?
I remember during the summers I would stay with my grandparents, and BBC Two would run it from 12 to 1.
Right.
Reruns of the old black and white Munsters, and there only was so many episodes. I think
it was only like 2 series, I think.
Yeah. And I'm pretty sure I've watched all of them and did make a point of watching it every day. I was excited for the Munsters. But it was always that, do you like the Munsters or do you like Addams Family? You know, it's weird to me that, I suppose because it's the 90s movie, whenever the animated Addams Family movie came out, a lot of parents were like, oh, it's the Addams Family, I love them. And I was like, from where? Like... Surely the Munsters is what you would like more because it used to be on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the 90s Munsters today, like you said, there was colorized versions, all a bit nothing could beat the original. I remember watching the Munsters today, being like, this doesn't really work. Which is what I said during Rob Zombie's The Munsters.
You're getting ahead of yourself. We're going to be getting to the review section very, very shortly, because isn't it Fred Gwynn?
Yes.
Fred Gwynn was Herman, and I think a lot of people probably know. Well, they probably know him from Pet Sematary. You don't want to go up that road.
Sometimes Dad's better.
Sometimes Dad's better. And then South Park Road, and we don't want to go up that road. And I'm not going to descend into just this podcast, generally with me going down, don't want to go up that road, etc. Oh, no, don't want to go down there. Sometimes Dad is better. Don't want it to go down into the center of that. But a lot of people probably know his performance as Herman from, isn't it the little clip that's went round, and it's kind of become more relevant now, where he's kind of speaking to, isn't it Eddie, his young son? He's talking about you never judge someone by their colour, etc. And this, that, and other. And it was ahead of its time. It was a lovely sentiment, and I think people probably know it through that, or have come to the Munsters through that. So I, like you, I definitely can remember watching it on television. Can't specifically remember if it was at your grandparents'. I can't specifically remember if it was on BBC. I definitely watched it, but I'm not 100% certain whether it was the Munsters today or whether it was the Munsters. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, listeners. That is about half as much of a fact. That's about as much of a fact as you're going to get from this recording. So I knew about it. I was familiar with the source material. Then as I come back to... Because Rob Zombie's talked about this for years. I think, was it... He's wanted to make this for quite some time, and then the stars seemed to align, if that's the way you want to put it, and it came about, and I refused, a bit like Joe with Bullet Train, I refused to believe that this film was always going to be Quentin Tarantino's Star Trek movie. Yeah. It's going to be, it's never going to happen. Rob Zombie is not going to make a child-friendly, and we'll come back to this, a child-friendly movie with the Munsters. Is he going to be another Robert Rodriguez and be able to show that actually he can do it really well? He can't, listeners. Sorry, I'm sorry. I'm just going to preempt myself on that. But yeah, can you remember kind of when you started hearing about the project?
I heard about it because they released set photos, and they released like that first teaser of a recreation of the intro. And I was kind of like, oh, they've done it. Like, it's not that they've done it as in, like, it was a good recreation, but obviously there wasn't anything more. It's kind of like, well, what else are you going to have? And then it was revealed, it was in colour. The guest stars, you had Cassandra Peterson, you had Richard Brake, you had Hugo from Lost.
I love the way you didn't even try to attempt. Isn't it George Garcia?
Yeah, the guy from the Weezer album.
Yeah.
And
Sylvester McCoy.
Oh, the great Sylvester McCoy. And then it just kind of one day on Twitter was like, oh, it's coming to Netflix in America. And then a lot of YouTubers were like, I think this came out on DVD. Weirdly, I was waiting for it because I had reviewed it for the Fright Club NI.co.uk. Cheeky plug.
Shameless plug, yeah.
Because I'd watched,
nice guys.
I'd watched it through means.
Legal means.
Legal means, of course. And Sylvester McCoy actually brought a copy to my grandparents' house. And we watched. Everybody
just goes to your grandparents' house.
We watched it together. We built the robot from Treasure Planet, from the McDonald's toys, just to set the scene of what I did that summer. Me and Sylvester McCoy skipping stones down by the schoolyard. So, what was the question?
What was Sylvester? What's your memory? Summer memories of? I just imagine you and Sylvester McCoy having this one perfect summer.
He drove away in a car, and I never see them again.
Yeah. I'm sorry, listeners.
He came back as Peter Davison. He's like, here you. And he's like, do you remember last year we kissed under the apple tree?
Oh, it's all right. As long, well, actually, will he not come back? No, it wasn't Christopher Eccleston. It was, oh God, the one that had the movie that no one liked.
Oh,
he kind of came back a little bit. They give him this is not going to make the cut.
because Doctor Who's better than the Munsters.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Doctor Who's better. So, yes, he came back. So, you had that one perfect summer with Sylvester McCoy. Then he went away and came back and was a completely different person. And you were like, who are you?
Like, what's that cardigan about? What's the question marks?
You know, come on, mate. Get over it.
Who are you? Eh? That's what the film's called. A Romantic Summer. Who are you?
Oh, why have I got the song in my head? Look around the world. I've got that. Listeners, I have actually got the full trailer constructed in my head. Just think of On Golden Pond with Adam Neeson, Sylvester McCoy, and a robot.
What do you mean, companion?
Right. Yes, we have let ourselves get sidetracked. So I don't know what I asked you. I don't know where we went. So I think at this point we're just going to literally just do it. And so I think at this point, I think we were discussing about Rob Zombie.
Oh, yeah. I know the point I was going to make. Rob Zombie, in the Dragula music video, drives the Munsters mobile.
Yes.
So that's his connection to the Munsters.
Right.
That's in my head. I was like, I got to say something, semi-intelligent.
Okay, that was worth it.
Yeah.
Okay, that was worth it. So I think at this point we are going to talk about the film. But I was delighted to get the opportunity to speak to one of the film stars, Daniel Roebuck. I spoke to him via Zoom. So before you hear that interview, let's play a clip of the Munsters.
Hey, numbskull!
Excuse me, sir, can you speak up?
I assume you are the Herman Munster character I've been hearing so much about lately.
Yeah, I think I'm the only one. When they made me, they broke the mold.
With you in it, I presume.
No! I think I was out by that point.
So that's a clip of Rob Zombie's The Munsters, and I'm delighted to say I'm joined by one of the film's stars, and that's Daniel Roebuck. Hello to you, good sir, all the way from Florida.
Yeah, hi, nice to see you. I'm glad you watched the clip. Hopefully Grandpa was in it. Yeah.
Oh. You are on full brand, good sir, and it seems from watching the film, it seems like you're having an absolute ball with this. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your portrayal of Grandpa and where in the scheme of the narrative where this finds the Munsters? Because people will be familiar with the Munsters. I know I am from watching the 1960s TV show. I'm not that old, Daniel. But I remember watching it on reruns. I'm not sure how big of a thing it came over to the UK, but I remember being it on. So I know I will ask you about the TV series, but just tell our viewers and tell our listeners a little bit about your version of Grandpa, where we find him, and a little bit about the narrative.
Of course. Rob, in his infinite wisdom and genius, instead of picking up a story or telling a piece of a story of the characters we already know, he decided that he was going to make an origin story. So it's not a prequel, it's not a sequel, because our characters have never existed before. So you get to see me, Count Dracula, the Count, living in my castle and, looking a little more like Vlad the Impaler, let's say, than looking like a stockbroker, like in the actual show with the tuxedo. And so I'm in my castle. My daughter, who is just 20, she's like a 20-year-old. She's dating idiots, won't marry who I want her to marry. And then she falls in love with this Herman Munster character, as I call him. And that's where, Herman and I in this version of the story are quite at odds, because I think he's the worst choice for my daughter. And I don't know, Jim, if you have a daughter, but I have a daughter. And boys did come to the house, and I would do everything in my power to make sure that they did not end up as my son-in-law.
Daniel, I'm young enough and foolish enough to think I'm still the idiot. I want to ask, because I remember when I first heard about this project, and you've worked with Rob 4 or 5, I'm not quite sure how many times you've worked with Rob.
I don't, about 8 or 9, really.
When I first heard about this, I thought this was a bizarre fever dream. It was Rob Zombie, the guy that we know that does all the horror. He's going to be doing a horror film, but set for a family-friendly audience. So can you remember how, because you've worked with him quite a few times, when the murmurs of this project started to come about, and then how you got involved?
Yeah, he just called one day and asked if I would play the part. And I didn't know anything about it up until that point. He said, "We're working on a new movie. I think you'd be perfect for this role. Would you be interested?" And he said, Grandpa Munster, but it's the Count because Eddie's not born yet in the story. And I couldn't believe it. Weirdly, Jim, my own sainted wife at the time was wearing a Lily Munster shirt while we were driving. Okay. And we looked at each other like, what? And I even said to Rob, if you're punking me, this would be the cruelest thing anyone's ever done in my life. And then, the hardest part really was our excitement to do it. But then this thing, I don't know if you guys have heard of it there, called COVID came up. And
it's a small thing.
It's a small
I don't know if it's going to go anywhere.
Yeah. I don't I don't think it's going to have any traction.
No.
But it ended up, delaying us 2 different times. And there's a point in Hollywood where you keep getting delayed that you start thinking, oh boy, at some point they're just not going to do it. But then, man, when we did it, it was the greatest. I used to say, people say, what was your favorite movie you've done? And I think, I direct and write too. And, the first movie I did, Getting Grace, I co-wrote with a great guy named Jeff Lewis, but, that was my people, my characters, my direct. So that was great. But it's hard to top loving this since you're a little boy and then becoming this as an adult. It's hard to top it.
Where are you going to go from here? Where are you going to go from here, Daniel? I don't know.
Great question. I mean, I don't want God to think I'm done. I'm not done, but I am happy.
Well, there could always be a sequel. Who knows? We could always go that way. I want to ask, because we've mentioned there the fact that it's a project, so it's not kind of giving us the characters that we know. So you've got a bit of space and wiggle room to play around with those characters. So when I think of the Munsters, I think a lot of people will think of Al Lewis from the original series, from the 60s TV series. So 2 things mean that sense of being able to come in and put your shape on your twist on the character. But also, I've got to ask, you come across someone who's clearly a fan of the series. So, seeing yourself in the makeup for the first time, how was that? And you've mentioned your lovely wife. She has a Lily T-shirt. So how did she find that?
I didn't get to wear the makeup in the States. I never got to wear it till I was in Budapest. Jeff got to do a makeup test before we got shut down with COVID, but then we got shut down, so I never got my makeup test. I was thrilled to wear the makeup. I loved it. I want to say this about Al. He and I were friendly, and Fred Gwynn was my friend. We did an entire film together for months. But Al and I were friendly over the years, and when I approached this, it was, I will use everything, because he broke down, he made it very clear how the guy should be. And I just got to put myself in that. Perhaps the mustache was nice that I could have my own version of it. And people didn't understand that I'm Dracula in Transylvania. So I look like Dracula did in the novel, and we shouldn't have to tell them that. But I thought the mustache and the hair made it mine with the curl and everything. I loved all of it. And I didn't even know about the mustache until we actually put it on. And we all looked in the mirror, myself and Rob and the makeup designer and the 2 beautiful women who made me up every day. And we all realized that was perfect. Like, that's Grandpa now.
Yeah. How long was the makeup process for yourself, and I suppose even Jeff Daniel Phillips as well, who's Herman? I imagine
we were equal, because I had an additional 45 minutes of hair, and his hair was laid over the makeup.
Please tell me the 45 minutes of hair was for the moustache, please.
Well, the moustache, getting it right, you'd be surprised. I've worn fake moustaches often. Landing it in exactly the zone, because they're made for you, is a little harder than you'd think. Same with the nose. I mean, they put the nose and the chin on every day, but every day it lands a little different, and then they got to work to make it consistent. The hair was because it had to be glued incrementally all around and you can't just put on glue and put on the hair. You can do this and then this and then this. But we were in makeup for about 3.5 hours every day.
I'm guessing you got to know your makeup assistants and people very, very well.
Very well. I would, they would make my ears up first, and then I would kind of zone out while they painted me, or while they glued me rather, because you don't want to be moving at all. You want to just be a blank canvas for them. They work so hard. And then when they were painting me, I would put on a different music. Like I'd listen to Beethoven when they were gluing, and then I'd listen to Meatloaf when they were painting. And then by the time they were done, I was ready to go.
Two very different tunes. I like where you're going there. You're a cultured guy, Daniel. That's what we can say. I've got to ask, coming back on that thing I mentioned about Rob, working on something that's much more child-friendly, that shall we say, than anything I think in recent memory I can think of within his back catalogue. How did you find him on this project? Did you see any differences from him from a filmmaker point of view?
I think that's a very good question. He was the same kind of committed filmmaker as he always is. He's a very technically smart filmmaker. I'm not as as a guy who makes my own movies, he knows his lenses and he knows his frame rates, and he knows stuff that I'm always thinking, about the acting, and he's smart enough to know that and the acting. That wasn't very different. We all kind of knew we had to just make these characters accessible to kids. There was some initial backlash over the colors, but the colors were inspiring and inspired to bring the kids' attention to stick with it. I don't know. Everything about it was great to me, and his attitude on the set was the same as it always is. Professional, and let's get it done, and let's get it done right. From
you as someone who is a fellow filmmaker and an actor, what draws you back to working with Rob? As I say, you've worked with him quite a few times. I mean, how has that relationship grew? I'd imagine you're good friends now. How has that relationship evolved, and what draws you back to working with him?
Well, he's nice enough to ask. That's
a good start.
Yeah, that's a good start. I like when actors pontificate when really, an actor, how did you choose this role? Well, I got
offered a paycheck.
I read it, and we're actors. Our job is to perform.
Yeah.
So what I love about Rob is I just always loved him and Sherry as people. And I didn't know them that well, but the Munsters changed everything. I mean, I knew them. We worked together, and he'd be gracious to invite me to parties and whatnot. But we lived together for 3 months. And I mean, we lived together. We ate meals together for the whole first month. Dad would go to the office, and we would sit around waiting for him to come back and tell us about the day, because of COVID, we couldn't really travel. All we could do is walk. That was our gift. So man, it was just great to get to know each other. Here was a great thing, Jim. So he was the #1 recording artist in America. Was it America or the world? Regardless, #1.
He'll love you even more if you say it's the world.
Yeah,
you're going to get offered the next job, if you tell him it's the world. He probably will if you say it's America, but if you say it's the world, definitely. I can hear your phone going right now if you say it's the world.
That's it. Oh, Rob, I didn't realize you were watching us film this. How are you? He was a #1 recording artist. He had the #1 album, and it was just us there to celebrate it. And I thought, what a sublime joy. When will a person like myself, a kid from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, just try my best to be a good human, a good dad, a good citizen, a good person of faith, when will I find myself in a position where I'm actually cutting a slice of cake to celebrate this monumental achievement with an entertainer? Like, that's kind of great, right? So I I love those kinds of experiences that I get to have with him as well. He's very good. And we met because we both kind of collect stuff. So when there's a toy like this in the 60s, Rob and I would both have had it. So when they put out a toy like this in the, now, it's clearly designed by Rob Zombie too, who put his stamp on it to make sure that this guy and this guy were similar in height and size and shape.
I've got to ask, Daniel, is this the first time you've emerged in toy form, or have you been in toy form before?
Well, that one's not mint. This is the first time I'm a Universal Monster toy. Oddly, I collect Universal Monsters. I have I used to have a museum filled with them. Now I just have an extended toy collection.
Will you be putting the toy of yourself, Pride and Center, in that collection?
Oh yes, I will. Because that's my dream come true. And by the way, that's like the small version. Having seen into the future and seeing the NECA, the actual Munsters toy of the Count and Herman, they're perfect. If people go to my personal social media, Facebook, I think specifically, it's Mr. Daniel Roebuck. There's an unboxing of this toy. You just go back about a month or two, maybe 2 months. And then we have an unboxing of the next toy, which will come out whenever they release the toy finally.
You're teasing us, Daniel. And definitely, what can I say? You're embracing the power of social media to unbox toys. What's not to like about that? Look, we are nearly out of time. I know that, and you've been very gracious this afternoon. Well, this morning with yourself, this evening here. What will our viewers and listeners see you in next? From a filmmaker point of view, are you working on any films behind the scene, and what will we see you in front of the camera?
Thank you for asking. We're prepping a movie called Tuesday's Flu that I'm going to direct and star in right now. We're going to shoot that in March. And then my personal films, this one somebody hired me to make. But my film, people can go to a channelofpeace.org. We have one coming out in the spring and one coming out in the fall. These are my faith-based movies. And I just looked earlier, just because it says that I have 20 upcoming movies. I think 10 or 12 of those I've already shot.
I thought you were going to say 10 or 20 of those were going to be with Rob Zombie, but
oh yeah, I'll be in anything that Rob Zombie wants me to be in. But I think the other thing that Rob knows about me is I don't make any demands of anybody. There's a part for me. Thank God I'm in it. And if I wasn't Grandpa Munster, believe me, I'd be on suicide watch. That's not a joke. If someone else had played my part, if this statue was of someone else's head, I'd probably be, you'd find me like, but thank God it didn't turn out that way. Sorry. So there's a lot coming out. People can check, and they can always follow on social media, Mr. Daniel Roebuck, Mr. Daniel Roebuck, everywhere. And I have the check mark, so they'll know they're actually getting my information.
And just very quickly, what was the website again, Daniel, where people can find your movies?
Oh, at channelofpeace.org.
Perfect.
Channelofpeace.org.
Perfect. Daniel, it has been an absolute pleasure. Hopefully our paths shall cross sometime again in the world, and it'll not through the digital world. It'll hopefully be physically. Maybe we'll get you here in Belfast. Who knows?
I would be honored, and we could talk again when a little thing called Star Wars Jedi Survivor comes out. That'll be out in a few months. But I don't think I'll get to Belfast before then. But I want to meet you when I come to Belfast.
There we go. Sounds like a date, good sir. Daniel, thank you very much.
All right. God bless you and your listeners.
Right, so that's my interview with Daniel Roebuck. Lovely guy, Adam, I have to say. It was an absolute delight to speak to him. I would love to speak to him in the flesh, but maybe we'll get to him in Belfast at some point. So he's kind of set the scene for us with the movie, so we don't need to spend too much time on saying what's going on with Rob Zombie's The Munsters. It's an origin movie of sorts. We see the creation of Herman, how he met Lily, and there's a whole lot of other stuff. that's going on. And, of course, Daniel Roebuck's The Count is not too pleased that Herman is dating and plans to marry and does marry. Sorry, listeners, it is a spoiler, but if you've seen The Munsters, you know that. His daughter, Lily. So that's kind of as much a setup as we really need to know. What did you think?
Good pilot for a TV show of the Munsters, maybe. When I say good, I mean an attempt. It's a weird collection of bits tied together, patchwork style, to get the Munsters from Transylvania
To Hollywood.
You're
not saying it right. You have to say Hollywood.
To Hollywood. And it kind of, it's a real roller coaster for me because I semi-enjoyed it. Never laughed once. I think if you had a camera on me the whole time, my face wouldn't have moved. But I didn't hate it until the end, when it kind of has to settle into, oh, this is the Munsters now. Some cool set design stuff. I know it was shot in Romania. Some really cool places. There's some good costume design stuff. Sylvester McCoy, my ex-lover, of course, is fantastic in it as Batman.
Are you just making it up?
No, because he turns into a bat.
That's true.
It's hard to really pinpoint without being like it's terrible, because it's not. There's real love behind, bringing this to the big screen, bringing it to a modern audience, but still feels so old-fashioned that it's really at odds with itself for the whole hour, 50 minutes.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy it. And I want to say this because we were offered the interview with Daniel. I think he is probably the best thing in it as the Count.
And that's not us being like, oh, we talked to him.
Yeah, no,
he is genuinely the best.
He's genuinely the best thing in it. He seems to be having a ball. I think everybody involved, it seems, has had a ball working on this film. It was shot during COVID, so they had to pretty much kind of bubble together. And I think that's why, although I don't know if I buy that completely, Rob Zombie has kind of said that he used a lot of cast members that he had worked with before, so he knew that they would gel on set. And, his wife is playing Lily, Sherry Moon Zombie. She's playing one of the central roles. So,
no, I don't believe you.
Shock. I know. Shock. How'd you get that gig? But he's wanted to have a cast that he knew would work together in I apologise, it's been a couple of days since I did the interview with Daniel. It was maybe 2-3 months, I think, they shot this together. This may be wrong. So they seem to have had a ball on set. It's just a shame. I find it very meh. And that's not going to go on the movie poster. I know that. Jim McClean Banterflix, it's a bit meh. But I can see that there's genuine love and trying to not kind of step on toes for fans of the series. But a part of me thinks, if you're going to give it to Rob Zombie, just let him go off and do it like the way you've had that. I don't know if it's out or definitely the trailer's been released for it. That weird Winnie the Pooh horror film.
Yeah, Blood and Honey.
Yeah, I haven't seen it. Have you seen it?
I haven't, no.
He's shaking his head. Listeners,
I'm class on the radio.
Shaking his head, listeners. But part of me thinks, would it maybe have been better? And this is someone who did not like Rob Zombie's version for Halloween or Halloween 2. Halloween 2 particularly, I think, is a very bad film. Just speak to Jim McMorrow. Stop him in the street and speak to him, listeners. But part of me thinks maybe he should have done an R-rated version of The Munsters, and it might have been more fun. I don't know. Because it seems like he's a bit lost with trying to do something that's, I think, looking here, it's a PG. And when I was watching, it's not that I'm shocked. It's just some of the gags and some of the attempts to aim for PG humour, which is supposedly for fun for all the family, parental guidance recommended. It seems a bit lost. And I look at what filmmakers can do with you've mentioned early on the Addams Family. Look what Tim Burton did with the first two Addams Family films. even whether you like it or not, the Wednesday series, although I think it's more of a 12A, maybe a 15, I'm not 100% certain. I think maybe it might have worked better in a perverse way, in a way that works more to Rob Zombie's strength, because he clearly has a fan base out there. I'm not one of them. I don't know if you are. I don't get the vibes that you are a massive Rob Zombie fan.
No.
But do you think that might have worked better?
I don't know. It's the...
I know you can't... You know, I'm asking you something that you haven't seen. It's like, Jim's like, wouldn't it be great if he just hadn't done this and done this instead? You know, instead of making something that's a bit meh, if he'd made a good film, yeah, of course I would have enjoyed it.
You know, if you take a comedian who's known for edgy jokes...
Yeah.
And you put them...
Michael McIntyre.
Of course, you know...
The edgiest comedian out there.
I have a drawer. It has a sharpener in it.
I'm going to act out what lifting things in and out of the drawer and things that I see and say.
You can't see it, but I'm bobbling my head. You take like an edgy comedian, right? Someone like
Les Dennis.
Les Dennis. Our survey says great Les Dennis bit in the extras outtakes.
Yes.
Better than the Munsters. Edgy comedian, put them in a situation where they have to do new jokes to children. They could maybe come up with something, you know, something a little bit silly, bring it down. Put a man like Rob Zombie in front of children and they run out screaming. He's not a man that's known for humour. So why make a comedy for kids?
Yeah.
If the man looks like he's never had a laugh in his life.
I'm sure he's had a laugh once. He's watched Michael McIntyre, I'm sure.
When they sent him the check for Halloween 2, he went, when you see this? I just think it's beyond him to make a Munsters movie good. One, because he is such a fan of the original.
Yeah.
So he doesn't, like you say, doesn't want to step on the toes of the original. And two, doesn't want to put his own kind of essence into it, because his own essence is like black paint into water. You know, you're just gonna make it murky. Whereas like the Munsters, weirdly back in the day, was just a family sitcom, but they happened to be
Munsters. Yeah. The Munsters were monsters.
That's what they said in the board meeting. Jim Cameron came in and said "monster," and drew a big S and put two lines through it and said.
And then they said Rob Zombie's involved and he took the dollars out.
He wrote change.
What have I got in my back pocket? There we go. That's what you can have. Because I want to say this in the bestest possible way. It looks really cheap.
Yes.
And I think that's purposely done as a nod to the original, but I can't see how your average, maybe 15, 16-year-old would, if you sat them down to this, considering the options that they have now through streaming, even just at cinemas normally, or just through your grandparents' VHS, I don't know. I think they would look at you and go, what the fuck's this? Why would you make me want to watch this? And I feel bad because I don't like judging films by, you know, that sense of kind of looking what they look on screen. But it looks cheap.
Yeah.
I mean, but saying that, the practical effects, the makeup, particularly I come back to Daniel Roebuck, I think he looks great as the Count. I think Jeff Daniel Phillips, I think, looks okay as Herman. My problem with him is that his whole performance is based around Herman's laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And then he's good at that point. It's like, right, you've nailed the laugh, and then everything else, doesn't really work. And then there's stuff like where he's in a rock band, and then there's like Sonny and Cher gag, and you're like, what, like, kid's gonna get that, really?
Yeah. He plays Herman like an arsehole.
Yeah.
Like, even towards the middle when he watches, is it Sambo on the TV, and he's like, I'm gonna be a rock star, put sunglasses on, and you're like, this is not Herman Munster.
Mm.
This is some fucking weird character that they've made up just for a plot contrivance to be like, well, now it's time to leave Transylvania.
Mm.
No rhyme or reason to it. And then whenever he gets to Hollywood, whenever he gets to Hollywood, he makes no intention to be a rock star.
Yeah.
It's so fucking weird.
It's almost like they hadn't thought it through.
Or can I actually speak about one thing when they get to Hollywood.
Yeah.
I was talking to the lovely Joe
Mm-hmm.
about this. The sequence in which they're in the car doing a sightseeing tour of Hollywood might be the second worst piece of travel montage I seen last year. The first being the animated sequences from the Nan movie.
Oh, see, I see what you did wrong there.
Mm.
You watched the Nan movie.
Mm.
Why did you watch the Nan movie? And more importantly, our listeners want to know the Nan movie or the Munsters.
The Munsters.
They're going to stick that on the poster. Adam Neeson, it's better than the Nan movie.
Me and a friend have an ongoing, not bet, I suppose it could be a bet, but an ongoing punishment with each other that...
You just rewatched the Nan movie?
No, worse. We like to meet up and specifically watch made for cinemas movies based on TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
Harry Hill movie, the Nan movie.
Mrs. Brown's, that movie, got to be in there.
I actually bought a copy of that in Poundland. Guess the price.
This is the Joker again, where you went to see it like 3 times just to be sure if you liked it or not. You're why they made a sequel to Joker. I
seen it in the cinema and then bought the DVD, and then about 20 minutes in, took the DVD and threw it out the window of my flat. So if you're,
So I would say, I'm going to say, so 25, 50p for how much you had to pay for that DVD.
It was £1, Jim.
Ah, so you got shortchanged, my friend.
No, I had £1 on me.
Oh, that's all right. Edgy comedian Adam Neeson.
So
entertaining your kids from next week.
So I know what a bad movie is what I'm saying, and I think The Munsters is alright.
Yeah, I want to kind of be clear on this. I don't think it's a bad movie. I really kind of wanted to go in and be surprised by it. In that sense that when, all those years ago, when Robert Rodriguez did Spy Kids,
mm-hmm.
and I was like, I really enjoy this. This is fun. I mean, I'm not the target audience for this, but I enjoy this, and I can see why younger audiences would get this. Watching this, I'm like, oh, okay. I don't see enough of Rob Zombie
mm-hmm.
coming through. There's little bits, elements maybe in the early on, when it's a wee bit What We Do in the Shadows, when Lily's dating the other guy, and he's kind of Nosferatu-esque character, and then there's a whole gag about, if you see this, you see this coffin a rocking, don't come a knocking, and you're like,
yeah.
That really? That's the best you can come up with? I'm pretty sure there's a couple of fart jokes thrown in there, because if in doubt, kids will laugh at farts. I laugh at farts.
Yeah, it's the funniest bit of the movie.
But I just feel there's not enough of Rob Zombie coming through, because I think he's trying to do something that holds a candle to the original. He's clearly a fan, and I think many of the cast members are fans. But I don't see a point in its existence, and that sounds really bad. I mean, it's not a bad film. I don't think it's even. I'll say this. I think it's like 2.5. I don't think it's a 3-star meh, if I'm brutally honest. I didn't hate it. I didn't love it. But I can't even say it's 3 stars. Like 2.5 for me.
Yeah, I would be the same. Like, you would never recommend it to anybody.
Unless you didn't like them. This was like Sylvester McCoy. He's like, he's came back after all. He's like, yeah, watch this. Where have you been?
Sylvester, we have more monsters to watch.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I guess we're maybe struggling to kind of talk about what else about the film. The other thing I think, coming back to the casting, Sherry Moon Zombie as Lily, I've no problem with her performance. I think she looks the part. I think she's, and I even maybe to an extent with Jeff Daniel Phillips as well, I think they're slightly too old. I think, they should have maybe aimed the cast slightly younger, but then part of me then, if I'm brutally honest, did we really need an origin story for the Munsters? I don't think so.
It's kind of, if you cast them at that age, then why not throw in like an Eddie Munster?
Yeah.
Like, why not? It seems like that age, the second half of the movie should have been, it's like Rob Zombie's first Halloween.
Yeah.
Where he has his meddling about the first half, and then the second half of the movie is just a remake of Carpenter's Halloween. He could have did this first half, farting about Transylvania. Oh, I want to be a rock star. oh, you can't be a rock star anymore because I'm pregnant. We need to look after a kid. Any monster, blah blah blah. Second half of the movie. Whereas this is farting about for an hour and 15 minutes, and then here I need to go to Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Sorry, keep misspeaking. I need to go to Hollywood and meet Elvira in non-Elvira makeup. Why?
We can get her in the movie.
She needs to get paid. Shout out to Cassandra Peterson's autobiography that came out last year.
I have not read it. Would you recommend it?
Fantastic. Genuinely made me hate a lot of rock stars because she was a groupie back in the day.
Okay.
She tells a lot of stories about people, including the lead singer of The Animals. Scumbag.
I shall check it out. I'm always a fan of a good autobiography. I know I am I do love Bruce Campbell's, both of his autobiographies. Mm-hmm. What is it? If Chins Could Kill, and then I forget what the second one's called. Email In.
Yeah, Bruce, email in.
Email In. But yes, those type of being. I do not love kind of autobiographies from big A-list from A-list actors. That kind of standard. That's where you will get the real crack. That's where you get the true juice and true stories, listeners. Have you taken anything from that? So what's the name of that autobiography?
I think it's just Elvira's Mistress of the Dark.
Okay.
I think. I don't know.
Email In.
Elvira, email in.
Yeah, there we go. So that's a lot of questions we're asking on this pod. But yeah, but I think we'll bring things to a close. Generally, I don't think I could recommend it, as you've mentioned. I don't think I could recommend it to anybody. So it's coming back to that key question, like, is it good, mate? It's not good, but it's a disappointment. I wanted to be proved wrong. Mm-hmm. I wanted to enjoy this and be surprised by this. The thing that surprises me, if I'm brutally honest, is that just how clunky and just how... I think you alluded to it, like how strung together it is. I mean, it's you've got an origin story, you've got them going to Hollywood, etc. Do one of those.
Yeah.
Do one of those stories and do it well. Don't have... It seems like they've had a lot of ideas and just kind of throw them into the mix. And sometimes you get an omelette, and sometimes you get scrambled eggs, and sometimes you just get shit. That's really nasty, so I'm not going to say it. Look, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and I just think it doesn't work. Some nice costume design, and as I said, come back to the positive, not just because he was on the pod. Daniel Roebuck is the best thing in this. As you've mentioned, I would happily watch little half-hour episodes. Him, Sylvester McCoy, reminiscing
in my granny's house.
In your granny's house, reminiscing about their days with Adam.
There's a good Daniel Roebuck video on YouTube of him going through his house. He has like memorabilia from old horror movies, and he has a whole selection of old Munsters memorabilia.
We talked about this.
Oh, mummy.
We talked about this because he now has a figurine of himself and the Munsters, and it's now Pride and Place. So, I mean, it's a lovely thing. There is things I like about the film. It's just that overall sense of badness clouds it and just left it very disappointed. And the disappointing thing for me is that I wanted, coming back to that point I made with Robert Rodriguez, I wanted to have that type of thing. It's like, right, okay, this is the project you wanted to make. Surprise me. And the fact that I'm surprised, the fact that it just seems so soulless. Mm-hmm. Well, not soulless, but there's nothing to it. It's like a wet paper bag. That's my problem with it.
It's where stuff in the Addams Family universe kind of succeeds. Whenever it came back in the 90s, you had the energy of Barry Sonnenfeld for those first two movies that really caught on with an audience. Like, look at the third Addams Family movie that went like straight to DVD with Tim Curry.
Yeah.
Didn't have the same energy, didn't catch on. And then you have Tim Burton with Wednesday, his style injected into that people really love. Addams Family, the animated movie that came out, the first and the second the last few years, kids seem to enjoy it.
Isn't there two of those?
There is two, yeah. But if you ever watch them, they are disgusting pieces of poo-poo.
Stick that in the poster.
Fuck you, Nick Kroll, for ruining Fester. But that's what kind of this needed. You could see on paper, Rob Zombie, Munsters, loves it, inject a bit of himself into it. He has his whole friends, you know what I mean? It together on paper, it's a home run.
Mm-hmm.
But COVID restrictions, maybe.
COVID restrictions. It seems like COVID restrictions, budget reasons.
Yeah.
I think have played a big part in this, and it's probably he's aspired to make Superman 4, and he's made Superman 4: The Quest for Peace.
There's a documentary on the DVD Blu Ray that you can buy now, of the behind the scenes of making this, and Rob Zombie just looks tired.
Well, have a nap, Rob.
I know how you felt watching it.
Okay. We've all been there. So I think on that note, so look, that's all from us for this week. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much to Daniel Roebuck for being on the podcast as well. And of course, Adam, thank you to your lovely self for being on this week.
Thanks, Jim.
So that's all from us. Adam, we're going to be back next week. We're going to be talking about Megan, which is just out in cinemas. So you've that to look forward to.
Robot lady,
robot doll. So that's all from us. We'll be back next week with another podcast. But for now, until then, goodbye.
Bye bye.